Hi everyone, it's Lisa. Hope you're having a fabulous Friday. We're doing a book recap today of the 33 writing secrets of best-selling romance authors. Now, this is the book recap for our book club discussion tonight for the Ice Cream Social. And it is going to be tonight, Friday, July 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to show up, all you have to do is come back to this channel. Or if you like getting calendar reminders, you can join via Crowdcast in the link in the description. There is a bit of a delay, like it goes to Crowdcast first and then maybe 5 seconds or 6 seconds later, it shows up on YouTube. But either way, doesn't matter. Jesse and I monitor both screens. And if you would like today's slides, I would love to share them with you. So check the link in the description and you can download all of today's slides as well. Now, the agenda today is really quick. We're going to talk a little bit about Jude and then what this book is and breakdowns by chapter, just one per author. Now, who is Jude Wilhoff? So she is a lovely lady because she put together all of these great stories for us. So she is a romance writer herself, and honestly, she didn't put a lot of information about her own story, but she does live in Denver, Colorado. She's married. She's a mother to 4 and a grandmother to 6, and her day job is really as a real estate investor with her husband. So it sounds like writing, or I'm guessing that writing is a sort of nighttime business for her. She did put a chapter at the very end of the book, or at least the copy that I have. And I purchased this off of Amazon, I want to say quite a while ago, like 5 or 6 years ago. So I might have a different version than the one on Barnes & Noble. So what is this book? This is really just a recap from Jude herself based on conversations that she had. So it's not an interviewer style where you get their exact wording. She mostly just reiterates, in her own words, what it was conveyed to her, as well as sometimes she does put a couple things in quotes. Now, all of these are best-selling authors, whether it was USA Today or New York Times. Sometimes it didn't specify. She called each of these Tea and Conversation with, and then she put the author name. Now, I want to put a disclaimer because this is a little bit of older materials. This book I have was printed in 2013, and I almost want to say maybe it was before then, or maybe it was 2013, because they're talking about ebooks like they had just been invented. So I just removed all of that information. And same thing with social media. People were very like, oh, wow, this is a new thing that I'm thinking about going into. So, someone said I think the ebook revolution is interesting. So anything related to that, I just took out. And I actually only recapped the first 10 authors just because a lot of stuff was outdated. One author mentioned that she found her agent using the Yellow Pages. Some of you, I know the Yellow Pages didn't even exist by the time you were born even. So, still a lot of great information. I love this book. I'm not trashing it at all, but I am saying some of it's a little older, especially since the majority of us are indie published or I think everyone is pretty much hybrid. Even, one of my favorite authors, Lauren Lane, switched over and she is hybrid now too. And she was, trad forever. So let's go ahead and jump into the chapter breakdowns that I do have, because I did do the first 10 and then obviously, the rest follow. So the whole point of this book, just so you know, was to give you hope. If anything, if you feel discouraged, you've been rejected, especially obviously this is 99.9% traditional because, based on the timing of the book and the age of a lot of authors in here, that was the only option. And everybody was super intent on getting an agent so that their book could be sold and they could be published. So everybody went through tons of rejections. So I thought this was a really uplifting book just to give you hope and have you sustain your faith that your book can be sold if you want to do a trad deal. So the first one was Judith Arnold, and her real name is Barbara Kyler, and she has written 90 books, so very prolific. She sold 10 million. And she is Harlequin category mostly. And it takes her, she said, 6 months to write a book. So obviously she's been writing for quite a while. Now, I don't know. I think her age is right around 66. Not that that matters, but just so you're doing, because I know if you're like me, I was doing the math. I was like, well, how old is she if she does, just 2 books a year? So she is definitely 100% a pantser. And you'll find that like pretty much a lot of the authors here, I think back in the old days, they're all pantsers. Or maybe that's just kind of the people that Jude found to do interviews with. But her main takeaway was she said that once she stopped obsessing about her writing career, it improved considerably. And she said in the beginning she was really afraid of agents, and just to remember that the agent works for you, not the other way around. The next one was Toni Blake, and she's written 35 books, and she has written for Kensington, Harlequin, Warner, NAL Signet, and Avon. So a lot of different publishers. She said she puts out about 2 books a year, but she is a plotter. So her main takeaway is it's better to go the traditional route if you're an aspiring author due to the support. Now, keep in mind, this interview was probably from 2010, 2011, when I think people, honestly, everyone was a little weary of ebooks. 100% all of the trad authors were very much like, oh, that sounds weird, right? So, keep that in mind with some of the advice in here. And it's totally possible, if you ask Toni Blake the same question today, like almost a decade later, her answer could be totally different. Number 3 is Jasmine Cresswell, wrote 75 books, 15 million copies sold. And when I say copies, for some reason in the book, they did designate that the copies sold were paper copies, like in print copies, so that you knew that they were not ebooks. Now, she writes on many different genres, and she actually doesn't advise that, even though she writes tons of different things. Like when you look at her Amazon profile, they're like all over the board, which I think is pretty awesome that she's so interested in so many things. And honestly, because this is before self-publishing, she found plenty of publishers willing to print all of those different genres. So the main takeaway was she thinks that smaller regional writing conferences are better for you to meet an agent and to obviously meet other people as well. And she said the book on the page is never nearly as good as the one that you thought of in your head, which is so true, right? All right, number 4, Jennifer Cruzy. She's written for Harlequin, Bantam, St. Martin's Press, and she takes almost 18, I said most, I meant months, months to write a book, and she's definitely a pantser. In fact, she's so hardcore a pantser that she is adamant about never writing a book with an outline. And she said she's so lucky because she is an amazing editor who totally defends that process and does not make her turn in. I think most traditional authors are required to turn in a synopsis or some sort of outline, and she does not have to do that. She said to make sure before you sign on with an agent that you know what you want to do with your career for the next 5 or 10 years out, so that you guys are both in alignment. And this was interesting. She said publication shouldn't be your goal. Writing a great book is. And then she said getting it published, but not published, but published well. Like anything worth doing is worth doing well. So it was more about the quality and the level of effort, I shouldn't say effort, but the results that come from getting published versus just saying I'm published. Number 5 is Cynthia Eden. So she was published by Harlequin and Avon. And again, possibly more. These are just kind of the ones that were mentioned in the book or the ones that I was able to find on Amazon. And she writes paranormal, and she also writes romantic suspense. Now, she is actually a pretty fast writer. She only takes 2 months to write a book, and her goal is 4 to 6 books every year. And she tries to write 4,000 words every day, which is interesting because if you saw my video from yesterday, that is my new declaration, is that I'm going to write 4,000 words every day. So the main takeaway is before signing, speak with your agents, their clients, both their current and their past clients. And she said to get involved with a local writing group or online writing organization and to network. Number 6 is Roberta Gellis. She's published by Kensington, and she wrote historical and romantic suspense. She said she wrote 7 days a week, and I'm just saying this because she passed away. That's why I'm using the past tense. She aimed for 4 pages a day, and it takes her an entire year to write a book. Now, obviously, that's a pretty long time, but you remember Jennifer Cruzy said she takes 18 months to write a book. So, I think there's like a lot of pressure right now to churn out books in like a week or something. I'm obviously exaggerating, but it's almost kind of how it feels. So, I think it's actually refreshing to hear that she took a whole year. Now this is the one where I said this story. She found her agent in the Yellow Pages, which I think is adorable. She luckily just happened to live in New York City, which, as you know, is where almost all of the agents and publishers are. And especially this was probably true, I think 50 or 60 years ago when she first started out. That was probably the only place to look, right? There was no internet. There was no romance writing guides or anything else. So I don't know how else you would have found an agent. That's probably the best way. Anyways, her main takeaway is she wished she was less easygoing about the reversion rates in her contracts. Number 7 is Lexi George, and she's published by Kensington, and she does paranormal, but she started out as a poet, which I find very interesting. But she writes 5 pages a day, and she tries to write daily. She is definitely a pantser. And her main takeaway, and this is really honestly the reason I love this book, is because she said she was rejected over 100 times and was told light paranormal just wasn't selling. But instead of trying to write dark paranormal, she just stayed with it. And because that's not what she wanted to write, the other stuff that was selling. And so her advice was write the kind of book that you want to read, this is obviously what she wanted to read. And eventually somebody purchased this book. Someone wanted to read a light paranormal. So I think this was great advice, especially because I've been writing to market so much and it's been painful, right? I have totally different things that I want to write, and I've been told they aren't selling, but I'm just going to go ahead and try to go for it. Anyways, number 8 is Colleen Gleason, and she is also a pantser. She's published by Penguin, Harlequin, HarperCollins. I think since then she's gone indie. I couldn't really tell. But she writes 1,000 words a day, and she basically, it sounds like her whole day is mom activities. So errands, spending time with the kids, making dinner, laundry, stuff like that. And then at 7:30 after dinner, she will go ahead and go, she said, to a coffee shop so she's not distracted by her kids, and she'll write there. So that's kind of her schedule. And she said she would have questioned things more about her early releases, like because she wasn't really familiar with things. People just told her that's the way it's done. So she kind of just let it go. So she wasn't very specific about anything, but she said she would have just questioned all of the things where people just told her that's how things are done. Number 9 is Robin Lee Hatcher. Now, she is a Christian author. I don't even want to say inspirational because she's actually just declared that it's just Christian. She has written for Avon, Harlequin, HarperCollins, 60 books, 5 million copies sold. She writes contemporary, historical, and women's fiction. Now, she puts out 1 book every 6 months, but she said that's only because that's what the publisher wants. She said she would definitely prefer to do 8 months, but she did admit that probably won't happen, especially with how quickly indie authors are turning out books. I feel like that's kind of setting the bar for how the industry is moving. Everyone is putting out books at like lightning speed. So her takeaways, and I covered up her takeaways with her picture, is write the best book you're capable of today. So in other words, don't try to write, don't wait to write something that you think is going to be better because you've written for 10 years. Just write the one that's good for you for today. And then just know that in the meantime, study your favorite authors, improve your craft, and know that your books will be getting better and better as you go. The next one is Laura Hayden, and I think her real name is Laura Kenner. She is published by Pinnacle and Harlequin. She writes rom-coms, she writes mysteries, and she writes inspirational, and she also writes paranormal. So it sounds like she is, fulfilling all of her romance writing interests in tons of different genres. She said she tries to put out 3 books a year, and her main takeaway was don't badmouth others, due to karma, and also keep your eyes open. mouth shut, and take copious notes. That was actually a direct quote. I'll put that in quotes. The other ones I did kind of paraphrase. So that is the ones that I did. However, there are still 23 more that you could look up. I think Debbie Maycomer is probably the most popular one. Not to say the other ones aren't great, but that's definitely the name that I recognize right away. But the main point and the whole reason I picked this book for this month was that you need to have faith. And I know sometimes it's tough, especially when you're in the writing phase or you see, like I just saw Jane the Virgin, the latest TV episode from last night. And of course, for Jane the Virgin, it's her second book ever, and she got a $500,000 writing advance, which is amazing because her book went to auction. And wouldn't that be lovely for all of us? But sometimes when you see that, you're like, it's so easy for her, even though she's obviously a fake TV character. But same thing, it gets discouraging when you are sometimes just in the trenches. You're only on chapter 2. You can't even imagine being done, submitting it for review or getting it out to agents or editors. So, I really like this because everyone struggled. Everyone took, different paths to get there, and everybody wanted to be traditional. So, it's not like today where you can just push it out. So, if you want to do trad, then this is definitely a nice book to read to just try to get your spirits up, because they're all romance authors and they all struggled and they all got rejections. So, that is kind of it. But my main point is don't give up. And everybody wrote what they loved. So in case you're struggling with wondering whether or not you should write to market. All right, I ask this question all the time. Tell me if you find these useful. Do you want more of these? Let me know. In the fall, because Jesse and I were talking, like maybe we shouldn't do book club anymore. Maybe, you guys just want to chat, and doing the book club just kind of takes away from casual chit chat. I don't know. All right. Will we see you tonight? Even if we don't see you tonight, you can always watch the replay. It is happening tonight, Friday, July 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on this channel. Or again, you can just sign up via the Crowdcast link and then you'll get a reminder. All right, I hope to talk to you guys soon. And if not, I will see you guys next week on Monday.